Welcome, everyone, to Cut to Faith, where we will engage with culture guided by faith. I'm your host, Jeff Dodd, joined by my beautiful wife and partner in life, Kelly Gonzalez Dodd. Today, we're diving into the cinematic masterpiece, Citizen Kane. This iconic film is not just a cornerstone of storytelling, it's also packed with themes that resonate deeply with faith and the human experience. Join us as we react to its unforgettable moments, break down its layered narrative, and uncover the spiritual truths woven into its legacy. Let's explore what this class can teach us about creativity, ambition, and the deeper meanings that connect us all. So let's get started.
It creepy is a mishmash of Viking boats and elf horses. Peace and monkeys.
There you have it, the scene that started it all, the MacGuffin of the movie, Rosebud. What did we think about that scene?
Yeah, so it's hard to talk about this movie without talking about the technical aspects of it. Immediately from the start, it paints this like really just grand scheme of this giant estate, right? And you want to have an idea what the heck is going on, and it's you're like waiting and waiting and waiting, and then you see that the snow is actually part of the snow globe, and then the camera zooms out, then it zooms in on just the mouth of a man that says Rosebud, and then the snow globe drops. Somebody walks in. It's this like kind of weird, funky shot of them and the reflection of the snow globe. And as we're watching this movie, I think the number one thing that we took away from it was like, wow, we've seen this in like a billion other movies. Like, pretty much every movie that's come out since this movie has taken something from it, right? It's the protege for like, essentially filmmaking in the 20th century. So this is a movie that I imagine like film schools all over the country, probably all over the world, have studied. And it's a movie I think everybody should see at least once, just to kind of take that aspect away from it. So it does a really good job of kind of giving you a sense of what you can expect, throughout the movie in terms of mystery and kind of these crazy shots with the camera, like all these different angles and zooms, and we don't really know too much. But the interesting thing is whether or not you've seen the movie Citizen Kane, you've probably heard the term Rosebud, so you can expect it to be a theme throughout the movie, but they pretty much start right out telling you that that's going to be kind of like the theme of the movie. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the opening scene of the movie. And basically, what happens next is that a bunch of reporters are trying to discover what exactly Charles Foster Kane meant by his last words that were spoken, aka Rosebud. Why was it so important to this monumental man, this tycoon of newspapers? This man had everything and then lost it. What was his Rosebud? We'll find out.
Careful, Charles.
Hey,
Pull your muffler around your neck, Charles.
Kane, I think we shall have to tell him now.
Yes. I'll sign those papers now, Mr. Thatcher.
And similar subjects is to be
The
final.
idea of a bank being the
I
guardian.
want you to stop all this nonsense.
We will assume full management of the Colorado loan, of which I repeat, Mrs. Kane, you are the sole owner.
Where do I sign, Mr. Thatcher?
Right here, Mrs. Kane.
Larry, I'm asking you for the last time. Anybody think I hadn't been a good
The
husband,
sum of
a father?
$50,000 a year is to be paid to you and Mr. Kane as long as you both live, and thereafter to the survivor. Say, at which time he is to come into complete possession.
Charles. Go on, Mr. Thatcher.
Well, it's almost 5, Mrs. Kane. Don't you think I'd better meet the boy?
I've got his trunk all packed. I've had it packed for a week now.
So the scene that we just watched was a flashback to Charles Foster Kane, aka Citizen Kane's childhood, where he's out in the background playing with his sled and his snowman and just enjoying playing in the snow as a young child. Meanwhile, his parents are inside the cabin, basically signing his life away. And from a technical perspective, I just really enjoyed that shot. I think it's something that we take for granted today in modern film, but that technique at that time, that deep focus, was something that was really rarely done until Orson Welles, the director, and also the adult actor for Citizen Kane.
Yeah, what Kelly means is when you're watching that scene, you're kind of watching like four different people at once, right? You're watching the mother, the father, the lawyer, and then also Charles Kane in the background playing in the snow. Before this movie came out, that wasn't exactly a very common thing to do in terms of film. So each one of those people may have been shot separately. It was a rare thing that the four of them would have been shot together, and that your eyes are looking from one person to the next. So it was kind of a cool technique at the time. And we see in this flashback that Charles is with his parents, but he's about to basically leave home and inherit a fortune. He's going to be under the care of this man who his mother is signing the papers over to. His father disagrees. So it looks like, he was raised in Colorado. He's about to go to, I think it's Chicago or somewhere like that, or, basically travel all over the country. So this is kind of the Charlie Kane that no one really knows about before he became Charlie Kane, essentially. So the movie's just setting everything up so you get a sense of where he came from, his beginnings, and then what he eventually became.
The first couple of months, she and Charlie didn't see much of each other except at breakfast. It was a marriage just like any other marriage. You're beautiful. Yes, you are. You're very, very beautiful.
Never been to six parties one night.
Extremely
in my
beautiful.
whole life. I've even been up this
It's a
late.
matter of habit.
I wonder what the servants will think.
They'll think we enjoyed ourselves.
You know how long you kept me waiting last night while you went to the newspaper for 10 minutes. What do you do in a newspaper in the middle of the night?
Emily, my dear, your only correspondent is the Inquirer.
The good part that you want to talk to each other anymore. She's reading the right newspaper.
Marriage scene.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of background, without giving too much away, that's actually the niece of the president of the United States. So Charles Kane marries her at one point, and he's slowly becoming this like massive tycoon of of newspapers throughout the country. So he's buying up more and more newspapers. He's growing his empire essentially, and you can tell like in the beginning they're happy, or they at least seem happy, but there's also the problem of him putting his work before his marriage, or at least it appears so, and each scene or each cut shows that he's putting his work again before his family. And if we want to go to the Bible, that's obviously not something that we should be doing, right? We need to be putting, of course, Jesus first, but family is right there as well. And this is a perfect example of someone kind of getting lost in their work, getting lost in the essential profit, or the ability to make money over love. Really, I would say at its simplest form. Would you agree, Kel?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so clear that there's a slow but steady dissolution of their marriage. It starts out in the beginning, they're sitting next to each other, he's complimenting her, he's spending time with her, and then he slowly starts spending more and more time at work and then doing things that affect her on a very personal level. So at the end, towards the end, we just see that they don't even talk to each other anymore. They read two different newspapers. She's literally reading the rival newspaper, just does not even want to talk to him anymore, and vice versa. So it's really sad to see how their love just dissolves over time. Instead of being like a plant that you water and fertilize and care for to love and grow, it just starts to wither away.
Yeah, definitely. You can tell that he's neglecting his wife. He's not spending enough time with her. They're slowly, devolving into this loveless marriage. So this is definitely a good lesson of, if you're married, or no matter how long you've been married, it's always work, essentially, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. What you put in is what you get out. So I think we can take a lot away from this scene.
Ah, but not the snow globe. The entire staff just looking at him. Faye's in the back thinking, great, I'll have to clean that up.
Yeah. So yeah, it is showing his loss of control. He's having an emotional breakdown because I don't know if it's his second or third wife. I kind
His
of lose
second
track.
wife,
His
yeah.
his second wife, yeah. It's the kind of guy he is. He has multiple wives in the movie. She abandons him, or
Mhm.
or he just feels that he's no longer in control, and he doesn't want to be in this relationship anymore. It's not going anywhere, so he has a breakdown. And you can really tie this back full circle to that earlier scene of when he was in the cabin and when his parents were talking about sending him away. So it kind of goes full circle to that. And it speaks to a lot of things, right? Because it's like this guy that owns everything. He has like all the wealth that anyone could have in the world, all the possessions anyone could have in the world, yet he still feels empty. He still feels like he's missing something, and he seems deeply, deeply unhappy. And why do we think that is?
He's deeply troubled, and I think it's a great point, tying faith into it, that material possessions, no matter how much you have, will never fulfill you, will never fulfill your soul. He has a God-shaped hole that only Jesus can fill. We don't know, as the audience, much about his life with regards to faith, if anything, but we can take a guess here and speak about spirituality and faith and analyze it from this film and see that this man is deeply troubled, and he is also still affected by being abandoned by his parents, specifically his mother signing him away when he was a child. And he feels that again when his second wife decides that she no longer wants to be with him. That first wife that he had, that was a disillusion of their marriage. They were starting to just not see eye to eye anymore, not spend time with each other again. So he gets married again. And with that wife, he kind of kept her almost like a trophy wife. He flew her off to his very sad palace in Xanadu. That's that opening scene that we saw where it had the monkeys and the Viking boats, and she's basically just playing puzzles all day. So she's a kept woman and she's very comfortable, but she's also very lonely. And I think it's very clear that Charles Foster Kane, he has everything he'd want, but he's also very lonely. He's very unfulfilled at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you could make an argument. He was raised without faith. He kind of had to learn things on his own, essentially, because he left his parents at such a young age, and he in a lot of ways was corrupted by the world because he had this fortune and he figured, I can just buy whatever I want and do whatever I want. I'll buy the newspapers. It'll be fun to run a newspaper. I can control the world. I can control what people read about, and I can tell them what to think. And he clearly has this thirst for control. He wants to be the center of attention. He wants everything. but there is a gaping hole missing, right? Or a gaping hole that is there. He doesn't have love. Doesn't seem like he has Jesus in his life. Otherwise, he definitely would be more fulfilled. So, this scene in a lot of ways also summarizes the movie because it shows how he truly feels and how you can have everything in the world, but if you don't have love, then you really don't have anything at all.
Yeah, amen. And Jesus is love. So, next thing we're going to react to one of the most important scenes where we finally see, as the audience, spoilers, what Rosebud is.
Could have found out what that rosebud meant. I bet that would have explained everything.
No, I don't think so. No. Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it.
Throw that junk.
Big reveal, the Rosebud. What did we think about that scene?
Yeah, it was good. It was, showing all the possessions that he acquired over the years. There was this kind of like zoom out shot of a reporter talking to a bunch of people that knew Charles Kane. The reporter did all this investigative work, walking away not knowing what Rosebud was. And then, of course, we find out at the end that it's the sleigh that he was riding when he was a kid in Colorado at his family's home. And one of the first things I said to Kelly actually was this scene kind of reminds me of the end of the very first Indiana Jones movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're showing this big wide shot of, just crates upon crates upon crates of this ark, somewhere amongst all the other boxes. In this case, Rosebud is amongst all the other possessions. You would really never know what it was or think twice about it. And as we see, it gets burned up in the end. So it's the one thing that, Charles Kane, I think, really loved when you think about it, right?
Yeah, that represents his childhood, it represents his joy, it represents his time before he had to have that pressure of being Charles Foster Kane.
Yeah. So it just goes to show, we can't buy happiness, right? And the first thing we need to do, the Bible tells us is, to accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and our Savior. But there's so many things that are a part of that tree. Marriage is a big part of it. Family is a big part of it. Charles Kane never has any kids throughout the movie, so it's like he has all these riches, all this wealth, but his life is just empty, and his marriages are unfulfilling. Yeah, he has friendships, but it's more of like an entourage than it
Mm-hmm.
is like genuine actual friendships. So it's interesting to watch a movie like this and almost contrast it to the last movie we did, It's a Wonderful Life,
Mm-hmm.
because that movie is all about family, it's all about friends, it's all
Right.
about people and community having your back. This movie really is the complete opposite of that when you think about it.
Right.
And there's really, as far as I can tell, there was really no mention of God. There's really no mention of Jesus or anything. Not that
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be necessarily, but I would also say like the lack of that just shows what kind of a life you can live if you don't have that.
Right.
Sure, you can kind of leave your mark on the world and you can show that you were popular and you had your name everywhere, but ultimately it doesn't matter, when you're judged. It doesn't matter when you're in the afterlife. Not really, because I think ultimately Jesus and God are going to look at you and say, yeah, but you never accepted me, so
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Right. Exactly. His life at the end of the day is empty. You can't bring a U-Haul of all your fancy statues and Xanadu monkeys with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So live life to the fullest, and make sure that you are honoring God first, and that you are spending time with your family, spending time on the relationships with the people in your life that you care about, and that you're building upon those relationships and you're constantly watering that seed.
Yeah. And something that I want to talk about in general with this film is that Citizen Kane is that movie everyone says is the greatest of all time, but might be too scared to admit you haven't seen. I was one of those. Don't worry, it was my first time watching it too. So here's the thing. let's acknowledge something that we all know deep down. Money and power don't buy happiness. It's biblical. Jesus himself said in Mark 8:36, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul?" Cain is that perfect example of this. He gains everything: the wealth, the influence, a museum like palace where his second wife builds an unlimited supply of jigsaw puzzles, but he loses the relationships that actually matter: his first wife, his second wife, the people around him. Like Jeff was saying, they're not even really his friends or like his entourage. His army of staff are there, but they don't know anything about him. None of his friends really know anything about him. If there were people who actually knew something about him, they would have been easily able to answer Rosebud, the most important thing, his most important possession. And let's talk about ambition. Cain's ambition starts with good intentions. Is Cain a good guy? Is Cain a bad guy? We can talk about that until the cows come home. He starts out as this person who wants to fight for the little guy, give the people a voice. But somewhere along the way, as the saying goes, hell is paved with good intentions. His ego takes over and it becomes all about him. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." And Cain falls. Now, let's get to the big mystery. Rosebud. It's his childhood sled. And that wrecks me. Cain had everything he could have ever wanted. And at the end of his life, what is he longing for? Is he longing for more fame, power, influence? No, he's longing for the simplicity and innocence of childhood. It's very relatable. I think there's plenty of us that want to go back to our childhood and relive that nostalgia and just go back to a time when life was easier. Jesus says in Matthew 18:3, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." It's not about clinging to the past. It's about that childlike trust and joy in God. Even when things aren't going well for you, the saying that the joy of the Lord is my strength is not about always feeling hee hee ha ha happy. It's about that biblical joy, that constant bliss that you feel knowing that the Spirit of God lives within you once you accept Jesus Christ. And what I love about this movie, the genius of the cinematic masterpiece, is how it forces us to ask, what are we building our lives on? Cain built his life on wealth, power, and ego. And all of these things from a worldly perspective seem awesome, but as we see, it all crumbles. This may have taken place in the 1940s, but this is still relevant today. Look at how many celebrities seem to live endless vacuums of dark lives. And as Christians, we know the only firm foundation is Jesus. Matthew 7:24-27 reminds us that the wise man builds his house on the rock, not on a foundation of flashy headlines and marble statues. So what's the takeaway here? Let's remember, Citizen Kane is not just a movie about a rich guy with a sled. It's a cautionary tale about priorities, relationships, and where we placed our trust. So ask yourself, are we chasing the temporary or building something eternal? Cain's story reminds us to seek first the kingdom of God. That's from Matthew 6:33, and let everything else fall into place. So, for myself and Jeff here, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen Citizen Kane, give it a shot, and then come back and let us know. What's your personal rosebud? What's the thing you're holding on to, and how does it align with your faith journey? Let's definitely chat in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a little classic movie night inspiration. Until next time, keep creating, keep seeking, and keep the faith. And if you like this video, as Jeff mentioned, check out our recent analysis of another cinematic masterpiece, It's a Wonderful Life. That one's more of an uplifting movie, so we definitely recommend it, especially around Christmas time. Merry Christmas. See y'all next time.